21st century, every tick-tock at the clock counts, and we know that time is money. So in such a scenario, getting in queues and waiting for buses, autos, or taxis doesn't seem like a good idea. As it said, victory comes from finding opportunities in problems. So Uber Technologies utilized this opportunity and came up with an idea that would make every tick-tock count and revolutionize the way people travel. So this is a story of Uber, in which we'll cover its journey from being an idea to a billion-dollar empire. There's no doubt that Uber is an incredible business story. From its journey, it's filled with countless challenges and controversies as well. So let's dive deep into the insane as well as fascinating story of Uber and how this idea revolutionized the whole cab industry. Uber's history started in Paris in 2008 when two friends, Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp, found themselves stuck on a snowy evening, waiting for a taxi, wondering whether the cab was going to show up or not. This scenario led to the birth of the concept of Uber, as they asked themselves, what if you could just request a ride simply by tapping your phone? And this single question in their minds led to the development of a billion-dollar empire as it is today. For people, the thought of using your cell phone to order a ride from your exact location was revolutionary and way better than waiting long enough for a cab to pass by in the streets. Due to this, Uber became quite popular immediately after its launch. Kalanick and Camp both were entrepreneurs in 2007, and they both sold their startups that they had co-founded for millions of dollars. Kalanick sold the Red Swoosh to Akami Technologies for $19 million, and Camp sold StumbleUpon to eBay for $75 million. This provided them with enough money to start an even bigger project. After selling their startup, both continued to be fixated on the idea of Uber and bought the domain ubercab.com. The project ubercab served as the beginning of the journey of Uber. Ubercab's official launch took place in San Francisco in 2010. Through the project of ubercab, Kalanick and Camp tried to solve the traditional problems associated with the taxi experience, as one had to wait for a taxi to pass by and go down the street, and there even used to be an uncertainty whether the taxi would show up at all. So the ubercab project aimed at overcoming these problems, as the mobile app allowed users to order a cab at the touch of a button on their mobile phone. And the user could also watch the journey of the cab, which was on its way, making it possible to know how long it'll take to reach your location. Another positive aspect of this project was that Uber used luxury black cars, providing the customer with an elite experience. Also, rather than messing up with the change and tip, the rider was automatically charged to the user's card, making the payment process seamless and easy. Therefore, the ease and simplicity of ordering a cab in the luxury black cab service fueled the app's popularity. This San Francisco-based startup quickly became one of the hottest companies and grew quickly, at least for the first few months, as its journey of this company is filled with ups and downs. Initially, the transportation agency showed up at the Uber offices and blamed them that their activities were against the law and that UberCab was breaking the rules of the taxi business. For example, Uber did not own their vehicles being used for cab services, but was rather letting the driver drive their own cars. This led to the creation of some legal issues for UberCab, and local authorities threatened the company with fines up to $5,000 per trip if it continued its operations. These threats of the local authorities created an environment of devastation and fear in the minds of the Uber team, except for one man, Travis Kalanick, who was the co-founder and CEO of Uber. He came up with a brilliant plan. He cleverly removed the cab part from the company's name and is now just known as Uber. Travis further announced that they were not a taxi company, but rather a technology company, and hence the rules and regulations of the taxi business don't apply to us. This smart move of Travis saved the company millions of dollars, but this was not the end of the tussle between local authorities and Uber, so Travis had to prepare himself for war. In order to win this war against authorities, Travis knew that he needed huge public support and that the authorities would not be able to shut down his company, but he needed to act fast. So first and foremost, Travis expanded the drivers' network of Uber by giving incentives to drivers, such as bonuses for completing a certain number of trips each week, etc., etc. Further, in order to get riders, Uber began giving the first ride to new users free of cost, and discounts for their further rides. These sorts of incentives encouraged people to use Uber as they saw the value and benefits of being received. For Uber, this was an incredible strategy that paid off, as the popularity of Uber was not only restricted to San Francisco, but it started its operations in other cities as well, gaining huge appreciation from the public. In this way, local authorities seemed to be helpless, as whenever they started a crackdown against Uber, they immediately faced huge public backlash and protest. Apart from the black limousine service, Uber later launched a new project named UberX, which was basically the low-cost Uber, and it allowed almost anyone to work as an Uber driver. This initiative created more concerns for the authorities, as it intensified the battle between Uber and the authorities at the same time. In 2012, the authorities started a crackdown against the Uber drivers and threatened them heavy fines and confiscation of their cars if they continued their services. In response to this, Uber came up with a new strategy. Uber told the drivers that if they should continue providing services and in case of any fine, Uber would pay it. Further, Uber didn't stop there. Another strategy Uber relied on was software designed to help cloak the service from government officials who were trying to observe the operations of the company, and it was known as the Gray Ball. This software fed the government officials using the Uber app with a fake version of the app, so whenever they tried to book a ride, it would appear that nobody was available. This strategy worked out perfectly for Uber, as the authorities had no chance of catching Uber drivers, because they had been grayballed. Further, Uber also started lobbying the government and spending vast amounts of money so that they could legalize their service, and the leverage due to public support helped Uber in achieving its objective and making its negotiations with the local authorities happen in various cities. Although Uber managed to win against the local authorities, it was not the end of the war for Uber, as a new opponent had emerged. Lyft was a new ride-sharing app that started its operations and was going head-to-head with Uber. But Kalanick was the man who wanted utter domination, no matter what and who his opponent was, and he was even willing to play dirty to win. One such act was that Uber started stealing Lyft drivers by providing them with more incentives and bonuses that they would ultimately join Uber. This way, Uber managed to win against Lyft, which many people may call unethical, but for Travis, everything was fair in this business competition. Lyft was not the only competitor for Uber. Travis was desperate to launch Uber in China, as it was way bigger as a market. But things were about to get worse for Uber, as it faced a new competitor named Didi there. It was basically a Chinese-based app that provided the same services of that of Uber. Just as very few companies do well in China, Uber was unable to compete with Didi because the latter was a Chinese app that the people in China preferred more, and it also had support from the Chinese government as well. Further, the strategy of Travis to give free rides, bonuses, and incentives didn't work out in China as it did in the rest of the countries. This was mainly because Uber had to face scammers in China. These scammers bought loads of cheap phones and then set them up with driver and passenger accounts respectively. Although the first ride for a new user was free, Uber had to pay the drivers for their services. In this way, the scammers booked rides on their own phones, completed the rides, and earned driver bonuses, and would repeat this cycle by resetting their phones. Hence, the scammers were making loads of money, and Uber was losing millions of dollars through these fake rides. Ultimately, after losses worth billions of dollars in scams, Uber finally decided to give up this dream of working in China. Going through all of this, one thing that we can be sure of is that for Travis, business was war and competition, and ultimately, his appetite helped Uber to grow more in the competitive environment. Despite all this, throughout the journey of Uber, it faced huge backlash, unethical business controversies, complaints of systematic sexual misconduct, and numerous lawsuits that served a severe impact on the success of Uber and damaged its reputation in the eyes of the public. People started believing that Uber culture was toxic, and things got worse for Travis as Uber was bouncing from one controversy to another, putting Uber's reputation at stake. Amidst all of this crisis, Travis decided to take leave of absence in June 2017 from Uber so that he could focus on himself, but little did Travis know that he would face the ultimate betrayal as Uber's board members and investors forced Travis out and made him to resign, as they blamed Travis for the controversies that Uber was facing. Since the departure of Travis, Uber has been much steadier, and its focus has been repairing relationships with the public. But despite what people think of Travis Kalanick, one thing's for sure, Uber might not have been the giant it is today if it weren't for Travis. So, from a cold evening in Paris, waiting for a taxi, to making a billion-dollar company, this was the destination for Travis's ride. We hope you enjoyed the story of Uber. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.